There's no other way to describe it. I'm ready to see them get into game, as the leads could be a big decisive factor in this one. We know that there's some games can be completely taken away. Aaron starting off with the Zacian and the Incineroar. Groudon Incineroar from Joe. So really big for Joe, I think, is landing the Intimidate on the Zacian. But in response, you get the Intimidate down on the Groudon. So nicely done by both trainers to identify that as a threat.
And we know that, because we've seen it multiple times now, that Joe's Groudon is Assault Vested, so doesn't have options for Protect or potentially a Sword Stance that is common on a non-AB version of Groudon. So it is, if Joe is going to stay on the field with Groudon, he will have to stay with this negative to his attack stat.
He's got to be really thinking about switching it out in this turn. We've looked at the Groudon a few times, and being able to just get caught very early, not exactly ideal. Look, there's not going to be any switches though, as the fake out goes from Joe's side into the opposing Incineroar.
And Behemoth Blade from Zacian into Groudon. It has been intimidated, so it's back down to neutral because of the item brings it up to +1. So that's a neutral attack, brings it to about half. Precipice Blades does miss the Incineroar though. Zacian goes down to half. Incineroar flinching anyway in that turn. So a bit unfortunate that Precipice Blades does miss on that turn for Joe.
That's not what you want, but you got the damage down on Zacian, which I think is really, really important, and you didn't get faked out. So potentially Aaron, if he was faking out the Groudon, that was a potential speed tie as well. I think they're both trying to figure out who's got the faster Incineroar. Obviously, they got a bit of insight from the Intimidates at the beginning, but it's all gas, no brakes in this game.
Sacred Sword brings Incineroar down to around 30% of his HP, and then now the Precipice Blaze does connect this time around, taking out Zacian, but because of Incineroar's Shuka Berry, it really does not do too much damage to it. Unfortunately for Aaron to lose the Zacian this early in the matchup, but Throat Chop ineffective into the Incineroar, but now can't use those sound-based moves that it would like to, like a potential parting shot.
Definitely limiting the options a little bit there. But this game has just been both trainers just swinging for each other every turn. No protecting, no switching, just throwing out attacks. And this now becomes a potential swing in Aaron's favor. He's got control of the weather. He's got the Kyogre on the board. That's exactly where he wants to be, staring down Groudon and Incineroar. While Joe would probably like to try and fight back, he does have to consider maybe a little bit of a pivot around now, because you just can't give up two Pokemon that easily. And here comes the answer to Kyogre.
Yes, Gastrodon with its Storm Drain ability will redirect water attacks towards itself. Of course, if Kyogre goes for a spread water attack, it will still hit the other side, and that is what happens with this Water Spout. Gonna boost the special attack on Gastrodon, which will be nice for Joe, but this super effective Water Spout will still be enough to take down the Incineroar. Now you have to wonder, with the Kartana getting onto the field, it's not just so safe for Gastrodon to just hang out around the whole time to stop the Kyogre, because Kartana is actually one of the few Pokemon that is very well capable of handling the Gastrodon in this format.
It's definitely very well capable. It's got the perfect move to deal with it. And Joe reveals his last Pokemon actually as the Zacian, so no Charizard there. Really, not going to want to play in the rain. Does have to get the Groudon in at some point. But this turn, I mean, don't forget, there's been no Dynamax throughout this game either. And that, I think, could be a huge deciding factor. Maybe the Kartana decides to Dynamax and just apply a huge amount of pressure. But Aaron always seems to be planning ahead. He brought the Kartana in, thinking the Gastrodon would appear. He's now switching out the Kyogre, waiting for the Groudon to appear and control that weather at the end of the game. And Incineroar gets to do its favorite thing, intimidate the Zacian and take away the boost.
Gastrodon will switch out into the Groudon though, so regardless, there is a ground type in that slot, on that spot. So if Kartana did opt for a Leaf Blade on this turn, regardless would be doing super effective damage. So could potentially be a very safe play to just say, if it's either Gastro or it's Groudon, I'm totally cool with hitting it for a max overgrowth.
Yeah, that's a really big problem, I think, is just being able to not have a safe switch in there means this Kartana could get going in this turn. Of course, you've got to worry. If Kartana gets one knockout, it's probably going to be getting more knockouts as well. So that could just really set the ball rolling here. Zacian does get to Sacred Sword it, though. But look, with the Dynamax, it's just not taking that much damage. It's strange to see a Kartana taking hits comfortably. The Groudon switch in, though, is being punished rather hard as max overgrowth just takes that knockout.
Yes, that never stood a chance. And now, importantly for the Kartana, with this Beast Boost, boosting its attack by 1 stage. You talked about the steamroll potential that Kartana can have. You get 1 KO. Now you have that boost to your attack. It makes it even more likely to get the next KO. So Gastrodon, who has to come back in now because Joe is down to his final 2 Pokemon, now you're really not too concerned about it because as long as Kartana is on the field, this Gastrodon really can't be a problem for Kyogre.
Well, this is a really nice ball position for Aaron. Not only does he have the Pokemon advantage, he's dealt with the Groudon, so he can bring Kyogre in at any point, but this turn in all of its like build up is Incineroar to deal with the Zacian with a fake out, and then the Kartana to just go after that Gastrodon. What are you going to do with the Gastrodon? You're going to protect against the Max Overgrowth? You can try.
You could max guard still, right? Because we have not seen a Dynamax out of Joe yet.
You have to max guard here, I think, or else this Gastrodon is going to take way too much damage through a regular protect. And Joe, yeah, is forced into the Dynamax on the Gastrodon.
Yeah, here it is. So this is now the second time we've seen the Pink Sea Slug Dynamax here in Salt Lake City. Was very effective the last time around. This time, what does help is gaining, doubling its HP stats, so it could potentially be helpful. But because of the Beast Boost, it really does not matter too much. It would maybe under a neutral Leaf Blade, we could have seen what happened, but I'm not really too sure. No Max Guard, though. So Gastrodon's taking names on this turn. It's trying to attack. It might not be able to, though, because Kartana's Max Overgrowth goes into the Gastrodon slot, and that's a clean 1-hit KO onto your Dynamax Pokemon. Very tough turn for Joe there. Did not go for the Max Guard. I
think Joe was expecting the maybe pivot of the target, expecting Aaron to think of the Max Guard, go after the Zacian, and then weave in an attack with the Gastrodon. But, it kind of came back to bite him a little bit there as Kartana just said, you know what, that's the slot I need to get rid of. I'm not worried about the Zacian this turn as I'm faking it out. Let me just deal with that Gastrodon, and it wasn't allowed to make a single move. It went back down to normal size almost as quick as it went up to the Dynamax size, so not a good game for the Gastrodon. And Zacian now facing down 3 Pokemon, probably not feeling itself too much in this matchup. Back to the drawing board for Joe, I think, in this one.
What I love about how Aaron has played this game, as the Zacian with Sacred Sword brings his Incineroar down to 4 HP, not enough for the knockout, but a +2 Kartana with the Max Airstream, not doing too much damage, but more importantly, getting speed boost. So now that Kartana can be faster than it in future turns. So the last thing to, Incineroar is not even getting knocked out at this point. It actually will because of Flare Blitz, which is really helpful for Aaron. It's going to knock itself out from Flare Blitz. Doesn't even need it because he knocks it out anyway. Joe is going to lose his first game on stream all weekend. He's been so dominant.
Be honest, so it's nice to see him mix it up, and another mix up here in the lead choice, just pivoting away from what works. There is the Charizard that I did want to look at a little bit more, but it's facing down the Kyogre
indeed female, so Aaron is switching it up here. Will set up the Psychic Terrain, so no priority moves from grounded Pokemon like the Incineroar, so there is no option for a fake out on this turn. And the adjustment from Joe with this Charizard this time around instead of the Groudon the last time around.
Well, the fake out turn number 1, the first time we saw their leads come out, I think was one of the only turns where Aaron kind of got the bad end of the turn, right? It was the only turn where he took a good amount of damage from that Precipice Blades, and if he doesn't want to deal with that, you have an answer in your team to say, let's not even mess about with fake out. Let's not dance any of this dance, and let's just bring this in. All it's done is set the terrain, and indeed he's leaving. Ooh, a nice pivot here. If this can stay on the field, it's going to be feeling pretty good about setting up for this Kyogre.
Both the Indeedee and the Incineroar are swapping out on this turn. Whimsicott goes in for Aaron, and then Groudon setting up the Sun thanks to its Drought ability for Joe. We've seen Groudon be so pivotal for Joe's strategies throughout the entire weekend, and this is a very common strategy in especially because of Dynamax. You don't lead Groudon, you still have to threaten the back, and then once you're ready to attack with Charizard and the Gigantamax Wildfires, then you switch in Groudon to ensure the Sun is up, so you get that boost to your damage output on Charizard. No G-Max Wildfire on this turn, though. Instead, it will be the Airstream into Kyogre, bringing Kyogre down to 12 HP. Almost a clean knockout there, but was not enough for it. So we'll get the speed boost, show Charizard's Life Orb, and a Water Spell from a no HP Kyogre in the sun is just absolutely nothing.
That is disastrous for Aaron, getting no damage down. The Groudon taking 2 hit points of that whole thing. Water Spout relying on the health, maybe not expecting the Charizard to attack that slot. Don't forget, at the beginning of the turn, Indeedee was on the field. Indeedee usually uses Follow Me, and as the opposing player, in this case Joe, you have to respect that. But Joe's saying, I don't even know if the Indeedee is going to be there. I do want to target the Kyogre, and if you let me do it, I am going to take the massive amount of damage on it and completely neutralize your Water Spout. So really nicely done. Aaron seeing that the Kyogre is of no use right now, but pivoting to this double supportive pairing, which isn't going to be able to apply immediate pressure from this.
Tailwind out of Whimsicott, though, so all of the Pokemon on Aaron's side of the field will have their speed doubled for the next 4 turns. G-Max Wildfire will bring Whimsicott down to its Focus Sash, but of course, at the end of the turn, thanks to that residual damage from the Wildfire, it will be knocked out here. This Charizard, through 2 turns, has just done so much damage here. We'll have a little residual damage onto the Indeedee as well, so maybe at this point, you can just go for your 3rd turn, another max airstream into the Indeedee slot.
So I know that Aaron wants the Tailwind. I understand that, but looking earlier in the game, the Indeedee has now given up its boost. Maybe just Water Spouting with the Follow Me could have been a difference maker there. Watching the game play out, this seems tricky, and Aaron has to bring in now either a very low health Kyogre, which is going to be relying on Origin Pulse, will get control of the weather, but the Charizard's been setting up speed boosts, and I'm just a little bit shocked that he's let this get away and let so much damage go down early doors. All credit to Joe, though. He's played it so well. He's seen that the Charizard is a massive, massive factor. Potentially leaving the Gastrodon at home. Oh, he has left the Gastrodon at home. That's confirmed. We've seen all 4. So that adaptation, really nicely done. Kyogre has to be looking at Origin Pulses now. And if you're a Precipice Blades or Origin Pulse apologist, you know exactly what it can do.
Yeah, and because of, like I was going to mention, the Gastrodon not being brought in this matchup, Joe deciding I don't need it here. I'm too worried about the other things that Aaron provides on his team. Kyogre just switching in to reset the rain and then switching back out into Kartana. So he had no interest in using an attack from Kyogre this turn. A nice bait there, as it did force Charizard on its last turn of Gigantamax to go for a max guard instead of attacking. Follow Me from Indeedee would have redirected the attacks there, but the Kyogre just switching in to switch out was enough pressure to force Joe to waste his last turn of G-Max.
Yep, it didn't want to play around with it, and that's probably something that's huge for Aaron in this matchup. Nicely controlling the board again. The Indeedee, yes, has access to the Follow Me, and that could be huge. Maybe that's why he needed to save it, something I was a little bit confused about earlier, but being able to keep it for now, just wants to land some damage with something like the Kartana, but the weather control is going to be still a factor for Joe. He has the Pokemon advantage, which makes it easier to control the weather. And of course, the terrain will be coming to an end that Indeedee won't be able to, really capitalize on that. So this Incineroar Fake Out could be huge, but Dynamax from Aaron, it doesn't make sense to Dynamax the Kyogre when it's so low on health. Of course, the Indeedee, I would be alarmed if he decided to Dynamax that. So the Kartana coming through. This now needs to be the Pokemon dealing the damage in the last couple turns of the Tailwind.
Kartana right now can deal some very big paper cuts with that Dynamax attack on this turn. Follow Me from Indeedee will redirect any attacks that were going towards Kartana and instead bring them into the Indeedee slot. Max Knuckle, a fighting type move, neutral onto Zacian, but more importantly, gets an attack buff this turn, which will, help out Kartana do even more damage. The thing you have to worry about is that the next turn you'll be facing down at a potential Incineroar, but the Sacred Sword is not enough to knock out the Indeedee. Would have been, will the Wildfire be enough? Yes, it does take it out there. So understanding the combination of Wildfire damage and Sacred Sword would be enough to get rid of that Indeedee. And now Aaron is down to his final 2 Pokemon, a Dynamax Kartana and a 12 HP Kyogre.
There's a lot of work being requested, and this Kyogre, like you say, is exceptionally low. That said, the Fake Out threat isn't there. The Indeedee controlling the terrain is still becoming a factor, but at any point, Joe can just switch in the Groudon and take away the rain. As soon as that happens, this Kyogre is pretty much done for, I'd say, because it's just not going to be able to deal the requisite amount of damage. Not the Groudon showing up this time, though.
No, instead, the Charizard switching in that Incineroar slot, and Zacian with a Protect. Yet another defensive play out of Joe. Like, not a lot of offensive output being put down the last couple of turns here, but the Max Knuckle into the Charizard slot is resisted. Doesn't do too much damage, but it does give Kartana a second attack boost. So if the Kartana on its, say, third turn can go for a max airstream and become faster, that might be a big deal. The Origin Pulse does connect onto Charizard, so 85% of the time it has worked out for him, and Charizard is knocked out here. This does, however, give Joe a free switch into either Incineroar or Groudon.
If you need, I mean, the Kyogre's just gone. It's gone with G-Max Wildfire, so it doesn't even matter. You don't need to show the Groudon. This Kartana is going to have to 3v1 without a Tailwind.
Yeah, Joe has rebounded, incredibly well here, considering how strong a position Aaron was in game 1. Joe has really been commanding here in game 2, and as Incineroar comes out, that is yet another Intimidate, which does negate the Max Knuckle boost to its attack stat there. I know the rain is up, but you don't want to be facing down the Incineroar if you're Kartana.
No, the Kartana has got a lot of work, and knowing, especially while it's Dynamax, it only has single target moves, so it's not going to be able to pick up those double knockouts. The Sacred Sword brings it so low anyway. This Max Steel Spike isn't going to help the Kartana, and this Zacian just takes it anyway. Yeah,
you can be +6 defense. If you only have 4 HP, I think they'll be able to break through that wall. Incineroar parting shot, though, into the Kartana, lowering its stats again and switching out into Groudon. Kind of just like, waiting it out, playing it safe from him. Understands you don't want to make any big mistakes on this turn, and now the Groudon's in, and Zacian can attack again. This is locked up for Joe.
Yep, the Tailwind's gone. The Kartana's just not able to knock both of these Pokemon out before either of them get to move. So it's just not looking like we're going to be wrapping this one up. But we are heading to game 3,
and that's all we can really ask for, Adam, is seeing a matchup with such great trainers like Joe and Aaron, getting a best of 3, actually going to game 3 to decide who moves on to the finals here in Salt Lake City. Like, this is incredibly exciting, and both wins were really convincing from both.
That G-Max Wildfire was between turns. So back to the drawing board for Aaron in this game as he makes an adaptation to his move.
Both of these trainers here in game 3. Only one, unfortunately, can move on to the finals. They both have a dream. Aaron wants to get his second regional title in the Sword and Shield era of VGC. Joe wants to get his second regional title altogether, and one of these guys is not going to be able to realize that dream.
It's tough, but I'm sure game 3 is going to be an absolute masterclass from both of them, giving it their all, as it essentially comes down to a best of 1 now. One game to see who gets through to the finals. Groudon, Zacian, Incineroar across the board. The Incineroar, of course, providing that fake-out pressure, but if you're Aaron, you've got to make sure that fake-out pressure goes into the right slot, and you can capitalize on it. If you leave the Groudon unchecked, it could just Precipice Blade you, could huge damage. If you leave the Zacian unchecked, it's just going to do some Zacian things, but at least, in this case, I mean, it's now going to be the same on both sides, but I was about to say, Aaron's Incineroar had already intimidated Joe's Zacian, but Joe just matches that immediately.
That's what you do. When you see an Incineroar, you bring in your own to do the same thing. Sacred Sword brings Incineroar down to around 30% of its HP, and Zacian says, I'll do the exact same thing. Now, Party Shot from Incineroar on Aaron's side is going to be able to let him switch out into something that can potentially help in this matchup more. Could be the Whimsicott with a Tailwind, or potentially, bring that one of your other sweepers. You'd wonder, like, did he? So he's showing Kyogre. That means he either left Whimsicott or Kartana off the team.
That's a big choice, and I'm not so sure about the Kyogre showing this early. Yes, this turn you'd be able to maybe throw out a big attack, take out that Incineroar, get huge damage down on the Zacian, and then maybe polish it off with your own Zacian. But you're the Kyogre player who knows the Groudon's in the back. You can't reliably just throw out big water-type attacks and hope that there's no sun switching. It's just an option that you have to respect, and this may force Aaron to pivot around a little bit. Of course, the Incineroar just also has access to Fake Out this turn. No Indeedee on the field so far to slow that down. So really needs to figure out how much this Kyogre can do, as Groudon just comes right in for Joe.
Yep, Zacian switching out into Groudon. As of right now, it doesn't look like the Indeedee is switching onto the field for Aaron to stop the... actually, it might actually because Kyogre is switching out. So I was looking at the Zacian slot, but instead, Kyogre slots into Incineroar to get an Intimidate. A second one onto Joe's Incineroar and the first one onto his Groudon there. So their physical attacks are going to do just a little bit less damage. And Joe being very pivot hungry, saying, oh, you brought Kyogre, let me show you my Gastrodon. So it was revealed. Joe has shown all 4 Pokemon. That means he has not brought the Charizard, and he did importantly bring Gastrodon in the back. So if Aaron has the Kartana waiting in the back, that's good news for him.
That's what he wants to see, and Joe's really showed his hand there. But now it's up to Aaron to call it and see if he can match it. We've talked about which grass type he's bought, and Aaron probably knows at this point the rest of the game plan is becoming a little more apparent to him. He knows what he's got to do. The Incineroar nicely using the fake out there. That's the first one we've actually seen go through. As Zacian, I think Zacian just needs to buy some time, maybe try and carve out a Pokemon advantage here, and then it'll be in a good position. Both trainers, though, are holding on to their Dynamax, and that could swing it in anyone's favor.
Stone Edge from Groudon does connect into Incineroar, only 80% accurate, so you're really tempting fate on that turn. Incineroar is down. Gastrodon flinching, of course, thanks to the fake out on that turn. I understand Zacian is at neutral attack because of that Intimidate, but I was kind of expecting Behemoth Blade to do a little more to Groudon. So does that worry you for Aaron to see that Behemoth Blade is potentially a 3-hit KO into Groudon?
That's not what you want to see, but I don't think the Zacian is needed to really carry this game and push Aaron through. The Kyogre and potential Kartana are the options that he wants to play with there. So that could just be his Zacian sitting on the field just saying, you know what, the other two are going to do the heavy lifting. You just get the bits of chip damage down to make those knockouts even easier and soften things up if it's Kartana to come in, clean up and finish the KOs, and then, of course, get the beast boosts and go a little bit crazy with that one. Groudon, of course, forced out because of what we've been seeing on the weather control. Joe, with his whole team revealed, needs to find out what that last Pokemon is very, very quickly, I'd say.
Incineroar intimidating yet again on switch in, but this Behemoth Blade now at -1 attack into the Incineroar, or into the Gastrodon slot, is not going to do a lot of damage. Of course, the Kyogre really can't even touch him at all either because of Water Spout thanks to Storm Drain. More importantly, though, this will claim the knockout onto Incineroar, so that is one less threat that is potentially facing down the Kartana for Aaron. The only thing that you're really now worried about would be a potential Sacred Sword from Zacian or, Precipice Blades out of the Groudon. Earth Power into Zacian is not enough for a KO there.
After that Storm Drain, that really hurts. And I was just thinking the Gastrodon doesn't really get to fire back too well against the Kyogre, but it does get to bruise that Zacian. Just been sitting on the field, and this is my concern for Aaron's side. He's leaving the Zacian on the field. It's been sat there for a little while now. It's been getting a lot of Intimidates down. It's at -1 attack. And if you just leave it there, then Joseph can focus down against the rest of the team. This Kyogre may just have to switch out right now just to get control of the weather again. And that switch could be heavily punished, and that would be a big concern for me if you're in Joe's shoes. So Joe is really relying on this end game board position with Groudon just being able to control the weather, and he needs that Groudon to be available. He's okay to do it now. Both trainers are at 3-3. When you get down to your last two, you lose the ability to switch. And if, say, the Kyogre's going to leave the field now, it gets tough, right? Do you want the Groudon to leave so you can bring it in afterwards later? Or do you just want to go for it because you want to get damage down, knock it out, and just force the Kartana in a really tough 1v3, 1v2 situation?
Well, it looks like both these trainers want to go for it as there are no swaps on this turn. Groudon has Dynamax. Will we see a match out of the Kyogre, or is Aaron saving his Dynamax for the Kartana in the back? We still haven't even confirmed if it's there, but it seems likely. Behemoth Blade, though, now into the Groudon, will do double damage because it's a Dynamax Pokemon. That's how it works. So, those two Intimidates have actually hurt it that much because think about how much more it would have done. Storm Drain, though, boosting Gastrodon's special attack again.
It's gonna be close,
This
though.
is in the sun with the Salt Vest. It's not enough to take out the Groudon, so he will get one attack here, and that is the Max Quake into Zacian, which will be enough to knock it out. Gets the special defense buff there. But so Aaron is now down to his final 2 Pokemon here, the Kyogre and this last Pokemon that will be revealed.
I ran the numbers quickly, and I thought that the Water Spout would get it close from full health, but it just wasn't a factor. Now Water Spout, not a thing you're going to be able to do. That Earth Power bringing it to just over half, but now you got to move on over to the unreliable Origin Pulse. The Pokemon count is going to be sat in Joe's favor at the end of this turn, and Aaron has to show his final Pokemon right now. It is the Kartana, it is a Dynamax candidate, but he's going to have to play rather wisely. Maybe this is Aaron's out, I know the sun is up, and it does hurt a little bit, but you've got to go after that Groudon with the Kyogre in the sun. That said, very, very smart from Joe. The Max Quake with a special defense boost, it might just be able to take it. The full power, full health Water Spout was underwhelming at best. I think Aaron banking a little bit there, but Joe just feeling so confident knowing that, yes, I've got the sun, I can take it, and let me just deal some huge damage. There's the final Dynamax from Aaron. I really like this, but if you're the Kartana, you've got to go after the Gastrodon, right? You can't just leave the Gastrodon eating up Storm Drains, then you leave the Groudon open. It's a really tough situation for Aaron, and Joe's put himself in a fantastic endgame board position.
And of course, if you leave Groudon open there, Groudon has access to fire moves in the sun, right? So very dangerous. Kartana with the Max Airstream takes out Groudon. So now Joe has lost his Dynamax Pokemon. It is 2-2 right now. A speed boost, which is important for both of them, and an attack boost that he will be getting on Kartana thanks to the Beast Boost ability. So I don't know how this Kyogre is trained because Zacian is such a fast Pokemon. At +1, will it outspeed? He doesn't really care. The Gastrodon is just there to stop it right now. But a +2 Earth Power does half. That's an Assault Vest Kartana. That means like that would have done more if he didn't have the AV on. So now we know Zacian is coming back in. Does the Kyogre at +1 speed outspeed the Zacian?
It doesn't matter though. It's still in the sun, and it's still gonna do a limited amount of damage unless he switches over to Origin Pulse. The Kartana has to do all of the work here, and you left the Gastrodon getting Storm Drains. That's the 3rd Storm Drain now, I believe. That's just going to be able to knock it. If Gastrodon gets to attack here, it gets to knock out both or either of the Pokemon of its choosing. And this is Aaron has to deal with the Gastrodon this turn.
Gastrodon is finally taken care of. It has done so much for Joe, not just in this set, but throughout the entire run here in Salt Lake City. That is enough for it. He is down to his final Pokemon, and what a Pokemon to have, as Zacian is the team, or the Pokemon that this team is really built around. That's a +2 attack Kartana, so that's going to be a problem. Single target Water Spout, but it is in the sun and has the lowered HP, so it does not do a lot of damage. It's up to the Sacred Sword. It's Kartana, does take it out, and there it is. Now the Kartana is gone. You cannot use those Beast Boosts anymore, and it's down with this Kyogre, unfortunately, against Zacian.
So nicely done from Joe on the previous turn to understand that the Kyogre was no longer a threat, hitting the Gastrodon attack into the Kartana. So nice. This Kyogre, yes, it's going to move before the Zacian, but what can it do? That Zacian is still so healthy, and I think Zacian is just going to be able to wrap this one up. Does have to try and get through the final turns of the sun as well, buying some time with the Protect to try and get through that, and of course get the recovery, but the recovery is going to help out Water Spout. That's cool. It gets it more damage on Water Spout, but there's still one more turn of sun to go. The Kyogre has to
go for
here.
double Protect. He gets it! He gets the double Protect! Aaron with a 30% chance protects his Kyogre. His Player Up won't hit it. He'll get more recovery from the grassy terrain, and the sun is gone. So now this is back in play. And if you want to keep using Player Up, there's a 10% chance you won't even hit.
It's going to be a really close one. This Kyogre is less healthy than the Zacian, but it's been getting recovery. It's feeling pretty good about itself, and the single target Origin Pulse does connect.
Finally, something going right for the Kyogre. Does bring Zacian down to under half. You know another one will knock it out. Oh my goodness! The 10% chance comes true. Kyogre nimbly dodging the Player Up from the Zacian, and now all you have to do is connect on your attack.
Wait, you've got to connect the Origin Pulse, or actually instant backup super healthy. Water Spout could be the
Water Spout might be enough base power at this point. Kyogre at around 75-80% of its health range. Obviously, the more HP you have, the more damage it does. Do you risk that 50% chance? But
Joe, you've got to buy a ticket to win the raffle.
You sure do, Adam, and I think Aaron agrees with us. Water spout with all that HP. Is down, and Aaron Traylor is moving on to the finals here in Salt Lake City.
Oh my goodness. Everything lands for Aaron. The double protect to get through the last turn of the sunlight, to get more grassy terrain recovery, then the miss on the play rough.